The Battle of Đắk Tô was a series of major engagements of the Vietnam War that took place between November 3 to 22, 1967, in Kon Tum Province, in the Central Highlands of the Republic of Vietnam. The action at Đắk Tô was one of a series of People's Army of Vietnam offensive initiatives that began during the second half of the year. North Vietnamese attacks at Loc Ninh, Song Bi, and at Kon Thien and Khe San were other actions which, combined with Đắk Tô, became known as the Border Battles. The objective of the PAVN forces was to distract American and South Vietnamese forces away from cities towards the borders in preparation for the Tet Offensive. During the summer of 1967, heavy contact with PAVN forces in the area prompted the launching of Operation Greely, a combined search and destroy effort by elements of the U.S. Army's 4th Infantry Division and 173rd Airborne Brigade, along with the Army of the Republic of Vietnam's 42nd Infantry Regiment and airborne units. The fighting was intense and lasted into the fall, when the North Vietnamese seemingly withdrew. By late October, however, U.S. intelligence indicated that local communist units had been reinforced and combined into the 1st PAVN Division, which was tasked with the capture of Đắk Tô and the destruction of a brigade-size U.S. unit. Information provided by a PAVN defector provided the Allies a good indication of the locations of North Vietnamese forces. This intelligence prompted the launching of Operation MacArthur, and brought the units back to the area along with more reinforcements from the ARVN Airborne Division. Background: border outpost. During the early stages of the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War, several U.S. Special Forces civilian irregular defense group camps were established along the borders of South Vietnam in order to both maintain surveillance of PAVN and National Front for the Liberation of South Vietnam infiltration, and to provide support and training to isolated montagnard villages who bore the brunt of the fighting in the area. One of these camps was built near the village and airstrip at Đắk Tô. After 1965, Đắk Tô was also utilized as a forward operations base by the highly classified MACV SOG, which launched reconnaissance teams from there to gather intelligence on the Ho Chi Minh Trail across the border in Laos. Đắk Tô lies on a flat valley floor, surrounded by waves of ridgelines that rise into peaks that stretch westward and southwestward towards and tri-border region where South Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia meet. Western Kon Tum Province is covered by double and triple canopy rainforests, and the only open areas were filled in by bamboo groves whose stalks sometimes reached 8 inches in diameter. Landing zones large enough for helicopters were few and far between, which meant that most troop movements could only be carried out on foot. Temperatures in the highlands could reach 95 degrees Fahrenheit during the day and could drop to as low as 55 degrees Fahrenheit in the evenings. Operation Greely. In January 1967, Major General William R. Pierce had taken command of the 4th Infantry Division, which had responsibility for the defense of western Kon Tum Province. Prior to the onset of the summer monsoon, Pierce set up blocking positions from the 4th Infantry Division's 1st Brigade base camp at Jackson Hole, west of Pleiku, and launched Operation Francis Marion on the 17th of May. The 4th had on hand its 1st and 2nd Brigades, while its 3rd Brigade operated with the 25th Infantry Division northwest of Saigon. Throughout the middle of 1967, however, western Kon Tum Province became a magnet for several PAVN spoiling attacks, and it appeared that the North Vietnamese were paying an increasing amount of attention to the area. Immediately after taking command, Pierce instituted guidelines for his units in order to prevent them from being isolated and overrun in the rugged terrain, which also did much to negate the U.S. superiority in firepower. Battalions were to act as single units instead of breaking down into individual companies in order to search for their enemy. If rifle companies had to act independently, they were not to operate more than 1 kilometer or 1 hour's march from one another. If contact with the enemy was made, the unit was to be immediately reinforced. These measures went far in reducing the 4th Infantry's casualties. These heavy enemy contacts prompted Pears to request reinforcement and, as a result, on the 17th of June, 2 battalions of Brigadier General John R. Dean's 173rd Airborne Brigade were moved into the Dak To area to begin sweeping the jungle-covered mountains in Operation Greely. The 173rd had been operating near Bien Hoa Air Base outside Saigon and had been in combat only against NLF guerrillas. Prior to its deployment to the Highlands, Pears operations officer, Colonel William J. Livesey, attempted to warn the airborne officers of the hazards of campaigning in the Highlands. He also advised them that PAVN regulars were a much better equipped and motivated force than the NLF. These warnings, however, made little impression on the paratroopers, who were unaccustomed to PAVN tactics and strength in the area. On the 20th of June, Charlie Company, 2nd Battalion, 503rd Airborne Infantry discovered the bodies of a Special Forces CIDG unit that had been missing for 4 days on Hill 1338, the dominant hill mass south of Dak To. Supported by Alpha Company, the Americans moved up the hill and set up for the night. At 6:58 the following morning, Alpha Company began moving alone up a ridge finger and triggered an ambush by the 6th Battalion of the 24th PAVN Regiment. Charlie Company was ordered to go to support, but heavy vegetation and difficult terrain made movement extremely difficult. Artillery support was rendered ineffective by the limited range of visibility and the belt-grabbing, or hugging, tactics of the North Vietnamese. Close air support was impossible for the same reasons. Alpha Company managed to survive repeated attacks throughout the day and night, but the cost was heavy. Of the 137 men that comprised the unit, 76 had been killed and another 23 wounded. A search of the battlefield revealed only 15 dead North Vietnamese. U.S. Headquarters press releases, made 4 days after the conclusion of what came to be called the Battle of the Slopes, claimed that 475 North Vietnamese had been killed, while the 173rd's Combat After Action report claimed 513 enemy dead. The men of Alpha Company estimated that only 5075 PAVN troops had been killed during the entire action. Such losses among American troops could not go unpunished. The operations officer of the 4th Infantry went so far as to recommend that General Dean be relieved of command. Such a drastic measure, however, would only provide more grist for what was becoming a public relations fiasco. In the end, the commander and junior officers of Charlie Company were transferred to other units. In response to the destruction of Alpha Company, MACV ordered additional forces into the area. On the 23rd of June, the 1st Battalion, 1st Brigade, 1st Air Cavalry Division arrived to bolster the 173rd. The following day, the elite ARVN 1st Airborne Task Force and the 3rd Brigade of the 1st Air Cavalry Division arrived to conduct search and destroy operations north and northeast of Kon Tum. General Dean sent his forces 20 kilometers west and southwest of Dak To in search of the 24th PAVN Regiment. After establishing Fire Support Base 4 on Hill 664, approximately 11 kilometers southwest of Dak To, the 4th Battalion, 503rd Airborne Infantry found the North Vietnamese K-101D Battalion of the Doc Lap Regiment on the 10th of July. As the 4 companies of the battalion neared the crest of Hill 830, they were struck by a wall of small arms and machine gun fire and blasted by B-40 rocket-propelled grenades and mortar fire. Any advance was impossible, so the paratroopers remained in place for the night. The following morning, the North Vietnamese were gone. The 4th of the 503rd suffered 22 dead and 62 wounded. The bodies of 3 PAVN soldiers were found on the site. North Vietnamese pressure against CIDG outposts at Dak Seam and Dak Sek, 20 and 45 kilometers north of Dak To respectively, was the impetus for dispatching the 42nd ARVN Infantry Regiment into the area while the ARVN Airborne Battalion moved to Dak Seam. On 4 August, the 1st of the 42nd encountered the North Vietnamese on a hilltop west of Dak Seam, setting off a 3-day battle that drew in the South Vietnamese paratroopers. The 8th Airborne, along with U.S. Army advisors, was airlifted into a small unimproved airfield next to the Special Forces camp at Dak Seam. The camp was under sporadic fire and probing ground attack by PAVN forces. This occurred when its Special Forces commander and a patrol failed to return and the camp received what appeared to be preparatory fire for a full-scale ground attack by PAVN. The terrain was high mountains with triple canopy jungle. The importance of the Dak Seam camp was that it lay astride the Ho Chi Minh Trail, the main infiltration route of the PAVN into the south. About a kilometer from the camp, the Army advisors and the 8th Airborne came upon the bodies of the lost Special Forces patrol, all dead, including the camp commander. As the 8th Airborne moved up to the mountain, the lead elements were taking small arms fire. Before long, it was obvious that the PAVN troops had filtered down on all sides. By noon of 4 August, the 8th Airborne with its advisors were in a fight that lasted several days. When the unit finally overwhelmed the PAVN forces because of superior firepower in air and artillery, it reached the top of the mountain and found a fully operational PAVN headquarters, complete with hospital facilities and anti-aircraft emplacements. During the 3-day battle, the 8th Airborne Battalion alone withstood 6 separate ground attacks and casualties among all the South Vietnamese units were heavy. By mid-August, contact with Communist forces decreased, leading the Americans to conclude that the North Vietnamese had withdrawn across the border. The bulk of the ARVN airborne units were then returned to their bases around Saigon for rest and refitting. On 23 August, General Dean turned over command of the 173rd to Brigadier General Leo H. Schweiter. On 17 September, 2 battalions of the 173rd departed the area to protect the rice harvest in Phu Yen Province. The 2nd of the 503rd remained at Dak To along with the 3rd ARVN Airborne Battalion to carry out a sweep of the Tumorong Valley north of Dak To and the suspected location of a PAVN regimental headquarters. After 3 weeks of fruitless searching, however, the operation was halted on the 11th of October. Operation Greely was over. Prelude. By early October, U.S. intelligence reported that the North Vietnamese were withdrawing regiments from the Pleiku area to join those in Kon Tum Province, thereby dramatically increasing the strength of local forces to that of a full division. In response, the 4th Infantry began moving the 3rd Battalion, 12th Infantry and the 3rd Battalion, 8th Infantry into Dak To launch Operation MacArthur. On 29 October, the 4 503rds of the 173rd Airborne Brigade was returned to the area as a reinforcement. The battalion was moved west of Dak To the Ben Het CIDG camp to protect the construction of Fire Support Base 12 on 2 November. On 3 November, Sergeant Vu Hong, an artillery specialist with the 6th PAVN Regiment, defected to the South Vietnamese and was able to provide U.S. forces with detailed information on the disposition of PAVN forces and their objectives, both at Dak To and at Ben Het, 18 kilometers to the west. The North Vietnamese had fed approximately 6,000 troops into the area, most of which made up the 1st PAVN Division. The 66th PAVN Regiment was southwest of Dak To preparing to launch the main attack, while the 32nd PAVN Regiment was moved south to prevent any counterattacks against the 66th. The independent 24th PAVN Regiment held positions northeast of Dak to prevent reinforcement of the base from that direction. The 174th PAVN Regiment was northwest of Dak to, acting as a reserve or an offensive force as the situation dictated. In addition, the 1st PAVN Division was supported by the 40th PAVN Artillery Regiment. The goal of these units was the taking of Dak to and the destruction of a brigade-size American unit. The Communist actions around Dak to were part of an overall strategy devised by the Hanoi leadership, primarily that of General Nguyen Khai Thanh. The goal of operations in the area, according to a captured document from the B-3 Front Command, was to annihilate a major U.S. element in order to force the enemy to deploy as many additional troops to the Central Highlands as possible. As the Americans quickly discovered, the area had been well prepared by the North Vietnamese. The number and elaborateness of defensive preparations found by U.S. and ARVN troops indicated that some had been prepared as much as 6 months in advance. As General Pears noted, nearly every key terrain feature was heavily fortified with elaborate bunker and trench complexes. He had moved quantities of supplies and ammunition into the area. He was prepared to stay. The immediate goal of the paratroopers was first to establish a base of operations and bolster the defenses at Ben Het. They would then begin to search for the headquarters of the 66th PAVN Regiment, which U.S. intelligence believed to be in the valley stretching south of FSB 12. Simultaneously, most of the remaining elements of the 4th Infantry Division moved into the area around Dak To. They were joined by 2 1st Air Cavalry Battalions and ARVN forces consisting of the 4 battalions of the 42nd Regiment and the 2nd and 3rd Airborne Battalions. By this time, the village and airstrip had become a major logistical base, supporting an entire U.S. Division and Airborne Brigade and 6 ARVN battalions. The stage was set for a major pitched battle.